Hopefully I've done all the right things and we're live on all the right channels. Now, how are you all? Happy Monday. Really nice to be back. I'm actually going to be doing a few Facebook Lives over the next couple of months, which is really nice. So we're going to do some beaded poinsettias today. We've got kits available on the website over on the Totally Beads page. And I'm also going to be here on the 29th, which again is a Monday, at 10 o'clock, and we're going to be doing some beaded holly and mistletoe. So there's loads of different things that you can do with these. You can use them as brooches, as hair clips, you could put them as wreath decorations. I've got quite a few to show you. I'll just wait for a few more to join us. Let me know where you're watching from, what you've been up to, and we'll have a nice little chat for probably a bit about the next hour or so. So I'm going to show you how to make the gorgeous poinsettias. Good morning, Lisa. Hi, Elaine. This is actually Kitty's wreath. Back pre-COVID, when we were doing workshops in the warehouse, we had a gorgeous wreath making workshop, obviously near this time of year, and everyone made their own wreaths, and then we decorated with the beaded poinsettias. You can see several of them in here, and you can see that you can change the size of them as well. I'm going to show you the basics in the technique, and then you can apply it to whatever you would like to do, whether you have them on a wreath, whether you make them as brooches, hair clips. Like I said, there's lots of different things you can do. You can even put them in little pots as well, and then obviously bring them out year after year. So these are the poinsettias that we're going to be making. We've got gorgeous miracle beads in the middle, and you'll get everything in your kit. I'll take you through it all. 100 grams of your red beads. We've also got the lovely green, all of your miracle beads, so you can make several out of the set, and then of course your 2 spools of wire as well. Green for the leaves, red for the petals, so it just keeps it all nice and hidden. And then on the 29th of November, I'm going to be showing you the beaded holly and the beaded mistletoe. So if you manage to get ahead and get hold of your kits now, on the 29th, you can actually make along live with me, which would be really nice. Okay, so I'm going to say hello to a few of you, and then we will get going. Good morning, Edward. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Carol. She says, morning, Sarah and everyone. Great to see you, Sarah. Can't wait to see your extra fingers in action. Lots of extra fingers today. Almost spare fingers. For those of you who watch some of my tutorials, you'll know that when I'm using wire, I always use my spare fingers to pull things through. That's what Carol's referring to. Good morning, Sue. Hi, Charlotte. Morning, Camille. She says, hope you got the confetti off of Curly's nose. I did. We were celebrating my stepdaughter's 17th birthday last week, and we put confetti all over the table, and the dog just kept on sniffing it and getting it all stuck on his nose. I put some pictures online. Good morning, Rachel. Good to see you, Sarah. It's a rather dull day here in South Yorkshire, but my happy post has arrived, and it's beaded baubles. Oh, lovely. Enjoy. I think that sounds perfect to get rid of your dull day. I'm just going to move it a little bit so I get rid of that light in the corner. 10 seconds before I went live, my ring light fell on my head. That's the kind of morning I'm having. Good morning, Jackie, watching in Westbury. Looking forward to the demo. Hi, Kitti. Hi, Karen. From the USA, 5 a.m. here in Maryland. Good morning. You are up bright and early. Good morning, Gwen. Nice to see you again from Leicester. You're not too far from me. Hi, Karen, Judith. Good morning, Esther, as well, over on YouTube. Good morning, everybody. So, Ruth has her spare fingers waving good morning. Okay, let's get going, because it's quite an involved make. We're going to make quite a few petals. Now, within your kits, you will also get full instructions as well. It's a PDF download. You can actually print it out. You can use it as much as you want. And just for those of you who have joined before we started, these are the beaded poinsettias that we're going to make. On the 29th of November, I'm also going to show you the holly and the mistletoe. So if you have any Christmas wreaths that you already use, maybe you're getting a blank one. This one's got pine cones in it, some little berry sprigs, and then of course we're making beaded elements to go onto it as well. But once we make the actual poinsettia, you'll be able to put them onto brooch backs, onto hair clips. They also look really pretty around candle bases, obviously not real flames because of course the beads. But they do look fantastic, like maybe on a little bit of memory wire, and you can loop it around. Also great for napkin rings And if you make really tiny ones, they can go on little crackers as well. So there's lots of different ways that we can get crafty. And we're going to get started. So first of all, we need to prep some of our beads. Now, those of you who have done beaded flowers with me in the past will know I am a huge fan of a bead spinner. It cuts down your preparation time so dramatically and it makes it really nice and easy. So there's lots of different forms of bead spinners. This one here has a wooden base. The tray sits on top and you spin it, you fill it with your seed beads. I've got about 100 grams in, well, I had a 100 gram, sorry, no, I had a 50 gram bag in there. And I've already made almost a complete poinsettia. So I would say we're about half full. Now the spool of wire, I'm just going to put a little fish hook on there. So I just take my finger to the end, give that a little bend around, and that's going to give me a fish hook. Now I'm going to turn you down so that I can show you everything. So we've got this lovely, neat little hook on the end of my wire. I'm just going to dip this into the beads themselves and you'll see it's like magic. They just fly up the wire. Now your bead spinners you can use for seed bead projects on threads as well. Good morning, Kitti. She's here too. Now we want the beads to come into contact with the very tip of the wire. So I've got a nice straight length. Make sure there's no kinks. And you can see I'm holding it a good few inches away from the tip so that I can really get that long row. And because I want my beads coming into contact with the end of the wire and I'm right-handed, I'm going to spin it anti-clockwise. A nice constant spin. Sorry about the noise of it. I've obviously got a wobble on this one. A nice constant spin and constant speed, and my wire is just sat in the thickest, deepest part of my beads. You can see I don't have many in here because I've already prepped the majority of my leaves. But the more beads you have, obviously the more beads it's going to come into contact with. So you can see that here, rather than picking up my beads individually, and for your poinsettias you do need a lot of beads, you can see that it's just making it super quick and easy, and it means that I don't have to pick them up each individually. I can just string these on. Now I'm going to start off by making a smaller petal with you. So there are many different techniques in French beaded flowers. It's a very traditional technique. Lots of modern spins been taken on them over the years, but the techniques are pretty much the same. And to make a poinsettia, obviously we need pointed petals. So you can make rounded petals, you can make pointed petals. We're going to perfect those points on your flowers today. With the shape of petal that I'm going to show you, so a pointed, you could also make things like orchids, lilies, sunflowers, daisies, roses. I've done pointed on for some. Roses are a bit of a mixture between the two, but it's a really versatile pattern and shape to learn, and it's actually very simple. So I've strung my beads. They are also on my spool, so I haven't cut my wire off. Lucy's saying this is a project I need to go back to. I failed the first time. Let's get that right today then, Lucy. Hopefully I can help. If any of you have any questions, do let me know, because I'll just keep on answering while we're live. So if you've done these before and you've struggled, let me know where and we can go over it. That's what we're here for. Now on your instructions, you will have a bead count and a row count. So our starting beads, I'm going to bring up 9. So I've got 3, 6, 9 of my beads. And remember, this wire is still attached to my spool, so all of my beads are preloaded. I'm going to leave a couple of centimetres up at the top, maybe about an inch or so. And this, you can tie a knot in the end of it or give it a little kink if you're worried about those beads coming off. And then I'm going to bring up some exposed wire. So I've moved all of my beads down to the bottom and I'm bringing up a little loop of exposed wire. And I'm going to hold that together with the beads so that they don't fall off. And we want to create some nice coils up at the base of my beads here. So to do that, I put my fingers in that loop, open it up and give it a spin. Now, by opening my fingers up and opening up that loop, you can see that I am navigating all of those coils to the very top of that opening. And this will actually become our stem. So if you wanted to have these as a tall plant, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily, because poinsettias are quite lower in the pots as a plant. But if you wanted longer stems, then you bring up more exposed wire at the base here, because this will be our stem. Also, if you're going to attach it onto a hairband, hair clips, maybe a brooch back, then this is all of your fastening wire. So the more you leave, the easier it is. Okay, so I've got my 9 beads that I bought up, and they are on my center stem here. And my wire on my spool is coming off to the right, and I can just bring these beads up as we're going to use them, because it's all still attached to my spool. So try and keep this nice and straight. You can run this wire through your fingers. You could also use nylon coated pliers if you have them. And also I'm just going to neaten up this wire where I've kinked it slightly and straighten that up. Now I'm going to lift up those center spine beads and nudge those base beads just underneath them. And I always work, when I'm now going to add my beads on, I'm going to rotate my work around so that my beads are coming up on the left-hand side and my wire is crossing over the front here. Now, we don't actually count any other beads from here on in. All I'm going to do is by eye. So I'm bringing up just enough beads, and I'm going to add in one more there, maybe 2. Let's go for 1. Just enough beads to bring it up and over that center spine. So my wire, my working wire on my spool is around the front, and I've brought up just enough beads to tip it up and over. And you want to try and close down these spaces. You don't want very much gap in between your rows. And now we're going to do a pointed petal. So this is the key to getting a really nice crisp, sharp point on your petals. I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to ask you to imagine a clock face. So my wire is coming over the front of the spine and I'm at 2 o'clock. I'm going to go around the back, and I use my finger just to, so I'm supporting all of the beads in my index finger and my thumb. I'm going to use my thumb just to nudge that around, and I'm going to take my wire to 10 o'clock around the back. So we go from 2 o'clock at the front, 10 o'clock around the back, and then I'm going to hold all of this nice and secure, and I'm going to come diagonally over, and I'm going to push that down, and I'll come to 4 o'clock. So 2, 10, 4. So they are my little base marks. 2 o'clock at the front, 10 o'clock at the back, and then you're bringing it diagonally over the front to 4 o'clock. Now when I bring these beads up, and I'll move my finger out the way so you can see. Now when I bring these beads up, it sits ever so slightly higher and prouder to all of my beads, but you can see I've got a nice point there. Now I want to wrap it around the base to secure it. So I'm actually going to flip it 180 degrees, and what that will do is let gravity just allow all of those beads to fall into place. There's no point battling with gravity, you're going to lose. And I'm going to bring up again just enough beads, so I'll get rid of the others, just enough beads to meet the spine. And this is where we do, so if you were going to do rounded petals, this is how you would wrap it. So rather than doing your 2, 10 and 4 as your points on your clock face, we're just going to take it 360 all the way around flat, and that secures those beads into place. And they're the only techniques that you need to perfect. We're just going to repeat this over and over again. So again, I'm going to bring my work 180 degrees so that the beads are always falling down, and I always have my beads on my left hand side, because my right hand is my working hand. If you're left-handed, you'll probably do it the other way. So you can see that already I'm getting a nice point. So nice and diagonally at 2 o'clock. So I'm squishing the wire in between my thumbs, which allows me to get a really nice, neat point. And you'll see that this stem hardly moves. Really nice, neat point. And then again, bringing those beads up. So you can see they almost just interlock into each other. Again, rotating around 180 degrees. 180. And then we go 360 all around the base. So just take away any extra beads. Again, holding it nice and flat. I'm squishing my wire location in between my thumbs and all the way around 360. And that will secure it into place. So that's your pointed petal. Now, in your instructions, you need to make 3 petals that have 7 rows and a starting count of 9 beads. So your starting count is that center row that we started with originally. And then when you count the rows, we count all of the rows of beads, including that center one. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to go round twice more. So again, we'll bring up the beads, bring it all the way around. And every time I'm bringing it in, I'm pulling it up and over. I'm keeping it nice and condensed to the row before it, making sure there aren't any gaps. And if you have less gaps in between, you will have a neater petal at the end. And again, all the way round, tightening it up, and I'm constantly squashing and flattening the rest of the rows in my hand, pulling it nice and tightly so that you get no gap. And because this is my last row, I'm going to go round a few more times. So I'm going to go round once, twice, 3 times. And that's my first petal. So take your flush nose cutters. We'll snip that as near to the stem as you can get. I've got a little pointed out bit of wire there, but we'll take that off in a second. Before you let go of your working wire, just make sure you tie a little knot in the end, or else you're going to lose all of your beads. Now you can also use your flat nose pliers just to neaten up and get rid of any of those sharper bits of wire. That's really important if they're going to be handled and worn. So things like brooches or hair clips. So I'm taking my flat nose pliers and in little pinchy movements, I'm just going all the way around the stem. And that will get rid of almost any of those sharp bits of wire. So now you can see I'm not going to cut myself on there, especially when I'm constructing it as well. This stem that we spoke about at the beginning, the exposed wire, I'm going to cut that in half. And now I've got wire that I can wrap around whatever it may be when we construct it. And then this little bit that we have up at the top. So this is the front of my petal, looking pretty nice, got a nice point on there. And you can see all of the beads are beautifully interlocked. If I turn that over, you can see exposed wire. It's hard to see because we're using red wire, and that's the key because that will hide all of that as well. But when you look at it really close up, you can actually see the spine of the wire and some wire wraps around there. That's the back of our petal. So I'm going to cut this and leave just a couple of millimeters. And then I'm going to take my flat nose pliers. You could also do it with your finger. I'm just going to nudge that around and down at the back. So that will actually just fold into the spine. You can probably just about see it. And that will give us a really lovely, neat petal. So there's one. Now to make our poinsettia, like I said, you need 3 petals with a starting row of 7. You were talking about me being busy with work. Yes, my full-time job keeps me full-time busy. Now I'm just going to do this to all of the petals that I've already made. But it's lovely to be back with you all doing a nice little tuition. And like I said, I've got a few planned in for the next few months, so you'll have to put up with me for a little bit longer. And I'm going to fold this one back again. So there are 2 of my 7 row petals, and then my 3rd. And like I said, you can adapt, for anyone who missed the beginning part of the video, you can adapt this poinsettia to absolutely every size. If you wanted to make it smaller, and I'll show you the importance of your starting row beads, I would suggest do the first one just like you have in your instructions. Learn the techniques, learn how to do it, and then you can start playing with sizes, because it will get really interesting as you start changing the bead counts, just how different you can make them. So try to think of odd numbers for all of them, because we want it to look nice and spread out. Even in a petal doesn't really work. We're going to go with odd numbers. So my first very small beads, my very smallest petals. Hi Kieran, lovely to see you. I've missed all of you guys. 3 petals, a starting row of 9 beads, and a row count of 7. Then we're going to go up a little bit higher. I need 1 petal that has 9 rows. So the only difference between this one and this one is the row count. I still started with 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I've got 9 rows. So all I did was went around twice more. And again, we'll just neaten this one up, trimming off those little stems, cutting the stem and trimming the top. So when I'm constructing these flowers, I always sit and make all of the petals first of all. Then I neaten them up and I do all this little bit of housekeeping just to tidy them up. And then we construct. Because then I know I've got everything that I need. And sometimes I might look at the flower before I wrap it all together and think, actually, I would like to have in another couple of smaller petals, maybe one bigger petal. So at least if you have all of them to play with, and I'll show you as we make this one, then you've got that little bit of wiggle room as well. Then we need 2 petals of 11 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And again, all that little bit of housekeeping, neatening these up. And the neater you can make them, I won't even trim that one down, I'll just pop that one back there. The neater you can make them, the better the end result in your flower. So there is 1 of my rows of 11. I need 2 of those. So we'll trim these off as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Just checking I've got them all. That one's a little bit long. I'll trim that one off. And you can see that my stem size isn't completely consistent with my bigger petals. I tend to leave more space at the base because it allows you, because we're adding so many more rows on, you can kind of see the size difference between the two. Because we're adding so many more rows, and I'm going to make a big one with you as well because it will get a little trickier as the petals get bigger because of course it's going to be heavier. We've got more beads in there. So I need 1 row of 13 as well. I believe that's this guy here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yes. And then I'm going to show you how to make the biggest, which is a row of 17. So the petal the size of the petals that I give you in your instructions really are quite big. It's going to be a nice statement petal and flower on your wreath if that's what you're going to do. So I've got my rows of 7, 9, 30, 11, 13, and now we need one of 15 as well. Now, have I done a 15 already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I am fully prepped. And as you can see, it's getting that little bit bigger. You might start to get more gaps in between, and I'm going to show you how to limit that in this big one that we're going to make in a moment. 2 rows of 15. So I think this must be this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And now we're going to do 3 at 17 rows. And with these bigger petals, I'm actually now starting with 13 beads. And what that does is slightly elongate my petal. Now you'll notice that I have a curve on these already. When I'm making it, I like to keep those gaps nice and tight, really trim them in so that all of these petals are nice and condensed in. So we've got all of these ready to go. Now these are my biggest ones, and I'm going to make my 3rd one live with you now. So this is 13 beads to begin with as our center row, and you'll notice I always work in odd numbers because you're going around each time and you're going to finish on this base, but we're also including the middle row. It's always going to be an odd number of beads because you want to finish on the spine. Hope it's making sense to anyone who hasn't seen these flowers before. And when we start to construct it, you might be looking at these thinking, how is this going to look like a flower? But I promise it will all come together beautifully in the end. And I would say this was probably about maybe an hour and 3/4 to make all of these petals. And I'm going to do a couple of leaves as well. The technique for the leaves is exactly the same as your petals, It's just that we're going to use the green beads. So I'll show you how to switch those up in your spinners. I'm just making sure I don't have any gaps in between those. And now we'll make our biggest. So because I'm doing a row of 17, I'm just going to add a few more beads on using my spinner so that I'm nice and prepared. If you feel like you haven't got enough beads on there, just do a little check, add a few more on, because you don't really want to run out of beads in the middle of a petal. It's not the end of the world. You can just leave yourself exposed wire, cut it from the spool and add extra beads on. But you can see how, in my eyes, essential the spinner is, because it would take me so much longer to add these on individually. Now with your spinners, I could see a couple of you saying that you struggle getting the beads on the spinners. You want to make sure that your wire hook, that point is nice and exposed. So all of the beads, you can see it's almost going to sit flat to that tray and they're going to come into contact. So I've got a nice hook for those beads to come onto. If you find that you can't get the beads on, rotate your hand, move and adjust your position, and you will find that little key area and key position where those beads will just fly up. And it kind of like knocks your socks off when you get a really long run of beads and they fly up. Hi Natalie and Marie, lovely to see you all. I've missed you all. So you see here, I'm only getting a few beads, so I'm just going to slightly adjust that wire, knock that wire down ever so slightly so that it's just skimming those beads, and you can see the beads fly to the outside. It's using centrifugal force. Don't ask me how or what that means or how it works. It just does. Some genius came up with this, and I don't need to know how it works. I just know it does. So because the beads fly to the outside of your spinner, you want to be in the deepest part. Okay, so we're going to make our biggest petal, which is a row of, a starting row of 13. So 3, 6, 9, 12, and 1 for luck. Now, because this petal is so much bigger than my first one, I'm going to leave more exposed wire up at the top. And again, I'm leaving exposed wire now at the bottom, bringing up that loop, holding the beads together, opening up that circle and allowing those coils to travel to the base of my beads. Now, because again, this is a bigger petal, I'm going to go around it 17 times, so it is a lot. I'm going to give myself more coils. I've got a longer spine because that way it's going to give me more spine to attach my wraps onto. And again, because I've been holding this, I'm just going to run that wire through my fingers, get rid of any of those kinks, and also on here. Run through, get rid of those kinks. Lifting up those top beads and tucking in my new working row behind it. So again, closing them up, making sure we have enough beads to come up and over the top of our center row, around the front to 2 o'clock, around the back to 10 o'clock, diagonally over, and I'm just going to pinch that down so that it stays into place and it's not raised up. Bringing up your next row of beads, around we go. Again, pulling it nice and tightly, but not tightly enough that I move this center stem. Always try and hold it in your hands to keep it nice and flat. And now we'll go for rounded, so all the way around 360. And as our rows get bigger, and remember we've got 17 of these to do, so there is a lot. As it gets bigger, I'm just really making sure that I don't have too much gap in between, so I'm constantly squashing them in my hand, pulling it up a little bit so that I get a really nice, neat finish, and again, rounded at the base. If you get any kinks in these, straighten it out, bring those beads in. That will also help limit the gaps in between the rows. If you have kinks in them, it's going to be harder. So again, holding it nice and flat, pushing into my thumbs so that tiny little space is where my wraps are going to be. 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 4 o'clock. and constantly rotating it in my hand, and then rounded all the way around. A few kinks in there, so I'm going to straighten that out. Beads come up. You can see how helpful it is as well, having those beads pre-threaded, because I'm just bringing them straight up from the spool. To make these rows, and just keep on navigating around. So I'm pulling it close, making sure that hugs all the way around. Just enough beads. So if you add in extra beads here, this is the difference between just one single bead. If I pull that in closely to the spine, you can see that I've got quite a big gap in between those. If I take one bead away and I pull it in tighter, you can see that it completely closes that gap. So just one bead will make a difference to your rows, and that's why it's really important to have gravity allowing them to sink to the bottom, because you can see just the right amount of beads that will be sat there. Now in your kits, you're going to have all of your wire. So you've got your 0.4mm wire, 20 meters in your red and your green. So you've got plenty to be working with. You're also going to get all of your red beads and your green beads. I'm going to use the green to make a leaf in a moment. So you could be making, I would say, probably 3 or 4 poinsettias to maybe go onto a wreath, maybe to add onto a garland at Christmas. Maybe you're going to wire wrap them onto the tree. They'd be absolutely gorgeous. I think I'm missing a few of your questions, but because my head's down and I'm concentrating, I will make sure I go back through over them afterwards as well, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Now, these petals, because I'm keeping them nice and tight and we're getting nice and big, they will start to almost overlap. And this is what I was saying about adding in that lovely little curve to the petal. So I'm starting to slightly dome it. And that way, all of my petals, because that's how my flower is going to sit, all of my rows on my petals will start to sit nice and neatly together. If you allow them to kind of overlap each other, you'll end up with a messy finished flower. And I'm going to count these rows in a second, because we must be up at about 13 by now, I would say. Few more to go. So you're making sure that every row sits next to the one before, nice and neatly into the spine. And you'll see that otherwise you start to get little gaps. So I tend to just dome it over, allow it to take a nice natural position. Now you'll see I've gone a little wonky. My spine no longer runs completely down the center. But that's fine, so long as I keep them nice and straight. I can almost kind of re-centralize it just by, hopefully you saw, I knocked the spine back and the tip over. I can re-centralize it, and that way I'm getting a nice even flower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So these are my last 2. It's quite funny, the more you make, the more you kind of familiarise yourself with how they look. You can pretty much know the size you're making without even having to count it. Just comes with experience. So this is my last row, and then this is my biggest petal for my poinsettia. I think I'm just going to pull that one in ever so slightly tighter, just for a nice neat finish. And because this is my last one, I'm going to go 3 coils around the spine, and then we can trim that off. So nice and close, making sure you don't lose those beads that are still left on your spine. Nice little knot on the top. And again, just your neatening up, bit of housekeeping on the stems. Trim some of that off, knock that one back, and we'll get rid of that sharp little tip in there as well. So there is now my biggest petal, and you'll see it does have that domed shape on it from where I was making it, and it will allow all of those to sit really nice and neatly. So they are all of my petals for the outside of the flower, and I'm just going to bring this in for you. So you can see here, you can make as many of them as you want. As we start to construct it, I'll just have a little look, make sure and see if there's any bigger ones, smaller ones that I wanted to add, and then we'll add really big green base leaves. But I'm going to show you how to add on the little bobbles for the top first of all. So now we're going to take our green wire, and that's the base, I don't want that bit. I'm just going to take a little bit of green wire. I'll do a little bit first of all, tuck that in so that we don't unravel. And we can add on our miracle beads. Now there's two sizes of miracle beads in your kit. You can either use both of them. What we're doing is creating like the little bobble center for your poinsettia. We'll go for a big one first of all. I'm going to mark that in place and hold it into place by adding a green stopper bead. So I'm just going to take one seed bead and add it onto the top, like so. So I've got my largest miracle bead and one seed bead. And I don't need this spine to be too big, the stem of this, so I'm just going to take a couple of inches, go back through the miracle bead, and that seed bead now just acts as a little stopper up at the top and will just give me a little bobble effect. They look like the seeds and the little pollen centre that you get in the middle of your poinsettia flowers. And I'm going to trim this off. Now you can either give it a couple of wraps in place to secure, so we can take that around, give it a little twist, that will hopefully keep that on. But as we construct the flower, these little centres will go into the middle. So I think we'll do that a couple of times over. Now I should have put my bead mat down, how naughty of me. They're gonna fly everywhere. So let's do a smaller one as well. Smaller miracle bead, one seed bead as your little stopper on top. Nice long stem, and we'll push that all the way up. If you don't have the strength in your fingers to be able to do that, you can actually use your pliers, and that will just allow it to go all the way up to the top. I think we'll do, let's go odd numbers. So we'll do 3 of our big ones, and then we can start constructing our flower, which is the really fun part. Now I like to add these onto individual stems, but you wouldn't have to if you didn't want to. You could add them all onto one and have it as like a little popcorn centre that you could add on. I'm going to make this one a little bit longer, just so I've got that centre spine, like so. So I've got 3 of my bigger miracle beads. Let's also go for 3 smaller ones. We'll make it nice and balanced, but always try and do your odd numbers. And let's go for 3 smaller ones. So again, miracle bead, seed bead as your stopper, all the way up. And like I was saying, if you don't have the strength and you want to use your pliers, hold that wire and just pull it up to the top. 1, 2, let's do 1 more. And then we've got 3 of each. And again, up to the top, and we'll trim him off. Okay, now we can start constructing. So I've got my nice little bobble centre, and we'll start putting our petals into place. So We're going to start from the inside out. We're going to start with the very, very smallest of our petals. And because the poinsettia is quite a flat flower, when I'm constructing, I just knock the petal back to about 90 degrees. It doesn't have to be so harsh, just a little knockback. And that will allow us to just position the petals how we want them to be. Now, I want the middle to be nice and tight, so I'm not going to add in my centres just yet. We'll do that at the end. I'm going to bring all three of these together and give them a twist. So I'll hold them in my pliers, and you'll notice that I'm keeping the petals nice and flat. So I've got all three of them. I'm holding it flat, and I'm just going to give this a couple of coils. Because I've just taken the time to shape the petals, I don't really want to ruin that. And you'll have really nice little neat coils at the bottom. So there are my three for the very middle. And this is what I was saying about adding in extra petals at construction stage. So you can actually build the flower and think, oh, actually, I really like that smaller petal, but I wish I had another one there or another one here. I tend not to do them all as threes. Now that I've got that spine in the center, I'm just going to position my next petal. So it's going to go underneath the three that I have just placed, and it's going to fill the gap in between them. And I'm just going to take that wire and I'm going to wrap it around, and you don't have to be too neat or too tight. Because I might reposition them, I'm just going to do 2 or 3 coils to hold it into place. And then we go up in size again. So now I've got my 13 rows, I think these are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Excuse me. And we're going to add these in. So again, knocking it back ever so slightly. By knocking it back each time, what you're doing is actually keeping your flower quite nice and flat at the back, which is really important if you're going to have this as a brooch or maybe as a hair clip. You want to keep it as flat as possible. Oh, we did quite well without the dogs barking up until now, didn't we? 42 minutes in. Do excuse them. So you can see that I'm starting to bring out and build up the flower. I like that one is slightly smaller, then we're going up. You can add in as many petals as you would like and keep it bigger, smaller, wider. It really is then a personal preference. And this is when kind of the magic happens, because you end up adding in your bigger petals. So now what we're doing, filling in those lovely gaps underneath. And you can take them a little bit lower as well. So you can see, rather than adding in, and this is why knocking it back allows me to sit them so flat. If I didn't, where I'm going to attach them on will be so much lower down, and you end up with a fat flower because you keep on adding these down the stem. So if you keep them nice and flat and knock it back each time, and I'm just adding on each individual petal with just a couple of coils to secure it into place. And don't worry if your petals get too misshapen at this stage, because we can neaten them all up. I'll show you how to rearrange and reform. And I'm always keeping it nice and flat and adding in those coils. Here come my spare fingers. So I'm holding these ones with my spare fingers, and I'm using my hand just to rotate it around. So you're holding the wire that you're working on, rotating with the other, and just keep on adding them around. So this is the kind of stage that I get to where I think, do I want more? Do I want less? I think that will do it. And then I'll put in a nice big one on this side as well. So I think I've got enough. Just try and keep it balanced. Because I've got 2 bigger petals over on this side, I'm going to go with my next biggest over here, and I'm just going to do it so that it slightly overlaps to here. Out you go. And because I'm only kind of loosely coiling them around just now, we will tighten that up at the very end So this one will sit nice and neatly over here. Doesn't it look beautiful? And because you've got the real intensity and depth of all of those petals overlapped in the middle, you just get this beautiful deep dark red centre spraying out to some of your lighter petals on the outside. I reckon that will do nicely. We'll add this guy in as well. And can you see that all of my petals underneath have started to go, all of my wires, my stems have all started to combine together. And if you want to tighten it up, take those pliers, hold it in the middle, and you can just neaten those up. Really important with wire that you don't overwork it. If you keep on wrapping and wrapping and wrapping, Camille, it was actually both of them. Both dogs going on. I put a post on my Instagram stories. I think it will come up on my Facebook as well. As I was prepping and getting ready to go live, one of them jumped on the seat behind me, and then Django, the bigger dog, jumps on the seat and sits in front of the camera because he can see himself on the screen, but he can also see out into the drive and the little green that we've got in front of us, so he can see all the cats and the birds. He just sits there and very often tries to drink my coffee as well. Now I'm just giving each of these little petals a little dome. So just to tighten it up and neaten it up, I'm just going to give each of those a little tweak. And where I've got some of the gaps, you probably can't see it too well on screen, but for me looking into it, I can see that some of those petals are beginning to overlap onto the outside. So I'm using my finger as the base underneath and neatening all of that up. And here's our gorgeous poinsettia. It's a pretty big one. And of course, when that goes on to our wreath, I just want him to go at the back actually. I'm going to bring that one down and I'm going to bring it right over. Like so. So if you get any kinks in these, just use your fingers, pinching it together and bringing it out. Now we can add the centre finishing touches. So let's go with the bigger ones first of all. I'm just going to use these little spines to attach into the middle. I'm just going to try and get hold of that to give it a nice little wrap first of all. Now the bonus of not having too many wraps on these is that I can actually secure them into the centre of the petal with a bit of wire in between them. So nice staggered ends. You'll notice I've got one quite a bit longer than the other because I can come through the middle with one of them, then I can go with the other one, and I'm just kind of going to knock it onto either side of one of my bits of wire and then secure that into place. So again, wrapping around that spine. If you know you're going to have this on a brooch, this is going to go onto a wreath, so I'm not worried about it having a longer stem. In fact, that's better because it will really be secured onto the base. Very sorry about the dogs. That will secure it onto the base. If you knew you were going to put it onto a shorter, flatter base, like a hairband or a brooch, then you don't want to continue going down the spine. You want to have it just up at the top here. If this was going into a pot, I would keep on going, make all of this nice and thick, and then that could go straight into oasis or into a potted plant. I'm going to do my 3 bigger ones first of all. So again, opening up, adding your longest piece in first. Let's give ourselves a straighter angle. And I can just about see, you can see the exposed space in there as well. Oh guys, I am sorry about the dogs, but it's so lovely that you don't mind, thank you. It's just, it's the madness of doing these things from home, isn't it? You know, you never quite get professionalism with me. There we go. And because, of course, odd numbers don't work, at the moment he's got googly eyes. We want to add in, of course, a third. Try and do it all in odd numbers. And that will just balance it out and give you that lovely finish. Now, I'm quite heavy on the right-hand side of my petals, so I'm just going to give this a little readjustment as I'm working on it. Straighten these out so I can get them through. Let's go in here and just give it a little wiggle until it goes all the way through, like so. And again, attaching at the back. So of course, the longer stems you leave, the easier the wrapping is at the end. And you'll notice I'm constantly holding my flower flat. Oh, good. Thank you, Angela. Who cares about professionalism? We love them. Thank you. So you can see, because I'm holding it, I've kind of gone all a little bit skewiffy, but we can neaten this up as we go, and then the 3 little ones will add in as well. It just gives you a lovely little bobble centre and gives you that little bit more texture. I've only added 6 on here, so I've done 3 of the big miracle beads and 3 of the small, but you could add in so much more. I know on the ones that Kitti makes, she loves adding in loads of these centres because it just gives you a really lovely effect. Because I've got 3, I'm going to go 2 on the outside and probably 1 in the middle. Of course, it depends on where I can thread them through. And of course, this is the size of the construction that your project, your instruction leaflet will give you. You can start making smaller ones, bigger ones, and start adapting those bead counts. Once you know the technique, you know exactly what you're doing once you've made 1 or 2, and that will give you your gorgeous poinsettia. I've just lost that last little bead into the middle, so I'm just going to bring that up a little bit more. Like so. So you could add lots more in if you wanted to, but that's going to give us a really nice effect. Now, because we've just got a little bit of time, I will make a green base leaf as well. It does make the world of difference. Now, top tip, when you are using your bead spinners, because you have the removable trays, and like I said, there's loads of different versions of the bead spinner, but they're all in the same concept. Just keep your little bags that your kit's in, and you can really quickly and easily decant those beads out, keeping those for next time, and then your tray is ready to house your new colour. I find that really helpful, especially when you're doing something like this, because you can change your colours really quickly and easily as much as you need. Now then, we'll do 1 base leaf, if you don't mind me keeping you a little bit longer. And then we can add it on. Now, because of course your base leaves are going to go underneath, they need to be quite big. So we will go with that first row count of 13 beads. I'm just going to trim that end off. You see I've got that little kink in the wire, and that's not going to be good for my bead spinner. So again, that lovely little hook, straightening it up. Always give it a little nudge, so that you have that nice flat surface and ready to add these beads on. So because your base leaf is of course underneath, we're going to have to go with the bigger rows. I might do them just a little bit bigger, so we might go for 19 rows on our base leaf, because I want it to be sitting proud of my biggest petals. I want it to be visible, and I want it to be slightly larger, so that it will just give you that lovely base. Now, if this was going to go straight onto a wreath, you wouldn't even necessarily need to add the green on, but we will, just so that we've got a nice finish. Now, if you've got these tiny little cute sort of cactus pots, these look amazing if you do base leaves all the way around, nice little bit of dry oasis in the base of your pot, and you can make gorgeous little decorations. I think they'd be lovely, maybe sat, you know, dotted around the home on some shelves, but they also look great if you make like a little table runner out of them. You could also use these to pop onto your napkin rings. There's so many different uses. But of course, adding them onto your wreaths, you know you're going to have them forever. Now, on the 29th of November, so that is it 2 weeks' time? I'm going to be showing you how to make the beaded holly and the poinsettia as well. They are perfect for napkin rings, for going on to crackers, and they're super quick to do. I know that this is a little bit of a longer make, but equally as impressive, I think. But if you want that little quick fix, I'll show you how to do your beaded holly and mistletoe on the 29th as well. So we're going to start with a nice bigger row. So 3, 6, 9, 12, and 1 for luck. So my row of 13, again leaving a little bit of a longer spine. Some of that exposed wire up to create the loop, holding all of those beads together, opening up that loop and just navigating all of those twists. Oh, sorry, my dogs set all your dogs off, didn't they? It's when the cat goes jumping off your lap, isn't it? Sorry about that. Lovely little coils. And then because I've been holding it in my hand, I've got a few kinks, so I'm just going to neaten that out, run that through my fingers. If you can't run it through your fingers, use your flat nose pliers, or if you've got nylon coated pliers, that's perfect for straightening out your wire. I just find my nails and my fingers do just the job. So pulling it nice and tight, and because this is going to be a big one, we don't want any of those gaps in between our petals. So we want it nice and tight. 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Giving that a little crease into place. Rotating it around. So you'll see what the nice thing is about making this flower is that it's all exactly the same technique. So your first couple of petals might be a little bit dodgy. That's okay. You are just going to get better and better with the more you do. By the time you finish, you might even want to go back and redo a couple of your first petals. But as with always, practice makes perfect. You are just going to get better and better as you go. I'm already starting, because this is my base leaf, I'm already starting to give it that nice little curve. I want it nice and proud underneath these petals, nice and tight up to the top, pointed at the top, rounded at the bottom. So if you were to do this rounded method, where you just wrap the wire completely all the way around, 360, nice and flat. If you were to do that at the top, you would have a rounded petal, and that's really good for things like pansies, peonies. What else has round leaves? Can't think of any other flowers that we've done that has the rounded leaves. Most of them are normally pointed that we've done so far. In fact, actually, your rose as well, although I did some pointed in the rose, some of them are rounded as well. So it just allows you to make any shape of petal. It's also really nice if you did something like maybe a peyote stitch poppy. You could add green leaves behind it in this way, so you can mix up some of those techniques as well. And for those of you who joined into some of our bead clubs recently, we made a beaded poppy as well, which was really nice. A suggestion: what to make with all the green seed beads? Have so many left over from various kits. More leaves and leaves and leaves. More leaves. You can use them to add really nice little embellishments. If you were to make like little even fabric flowers, if you've got little hairbands, why not add on some beaded leaves just for a bit of texture and a bit of difference? I think that would be really nice. Or you could make a big potted flower and have loads of base leaves. An orchid is a great one to use up green seed beads because they are predominantly very leafy plants down at the base. So the more leaves you put on the bottom of them, we have done the orchids in the past. I'm not sure if the kits are available on the website, but I know that we did an orchid as one of our Facebook Lives when we started doing them daily when we went into lockdown very originally. So if you go on to the videos on the Totally Beads Facebook page and search for orchid, I make huge big leaves out of those. Let's bring this one all the way around. and I'm going to run out of green seed beads on my pre-threaded. So I'm just going to do enough rows to use up all of these beads that I have. I don't think I'm going to get another one out of it. What I'll do is cut it from the spool and show you how you can add that on. So I've run out of my wire. Well, I've run out of beads. My wire is obviously still on the spool. Just get rid of that kink. So if you want to add on any more beads, and it's going to be marginal on this one, I'm really not going to need very many, cut your wire from the spool. Because, of course, I am a big spinner fan, I will add them on with the spinner. I'm just going to go one way round first of all. I might not even need any. Let's have a little look-sees. Up to the top. I'm just going to take one bead away. Do we have enough? Oh, we do. However, because you've cut the wire from the spool, you can use the other end, attach on with your spinners. If you're worried about losing these beads, just put a little kink in the end. But this is actually enough for me. Again, that nice dome. And we'll finish that off. So 360 all the way around, 2 or 3 times, maybe one for luck, and we'll trim that off. So again, roll it in your fingers. I'm rolling them out, keeping it nice and neat. And then your housekeeping. Neaten up and pinch in. Trim the end. Trim the top. And you've got a lovely base leaf to go underneath, and you'll see that it will just bring it to life. Now, if I was doing this and had a little bit more time, I would probably add in another 2 leaves. So I'd go for 1 here and 1 here as well, and then you're ready to attach it onto whatever it may be that you're going to use your poinsettia for. Do let me know as well if you end up making these. Send me pickies. I want to know what you're going to add them into. I'm going to sit this one onto the wreath so that you can see. And the more realistic shape you give them, the better it's going to look. So again, that lovely dome, you can see how it really domes out. And it will give you a beautiful finish. Let's add this one on, although it is slightly different green to the rest of them. If you were going to add this into your wreath base, this is the holly, the beaded holly that I'll be showing you on the 29th. And of course, to attach these on, you want to bring it in. Isn't that going to look gorgeous on a wreath? Bring it in, wrap it around the base of your wreath. And then of course that will secure it into place. A little bit of hot glue as well will of course always help out. But you can add on some beautiful holly, you can add in some pine cones and everything as well. And then of course you've got a gorgeous set. I'm going to go through and answer some of your questions as well, because I know I've missed quite a few before I leave you. And then good luck with your gorgeous flowers. I hope you enjoyed them. Sue is asking, how many flowers will the kit make? If you make the flowers of this size, you will get 3 out of it. But if you did a couple that were slightly smaller as well, I would be aiming to probably get about 5 from the set. That's more than enough to fill a beautiful wreath, or to make maybe even like a really nice potted plant as well. I think that will look gorgeous. How do you make the holly? Natalie, we're doing it on the 29th. So 29th of November, it's a Monday again. I think it's 2 weeks time, 2 or 3 weeks time. And I will be here in the live making the holly and the mistletoe, which is really gorgeous. I'm gonna make a sprig of mistletoe, maybe put it above the door. I might attach them to my poinsettia plant that I was given last year. has no red flowers anymore. Oh, bless you. Now we can fake it till we can keep these plants alive, right? Charlotte, you are more than welcome. Oh, Joanne says that's so beautiful. Thank you so much. Did somebody already ask how many the kits make? Yes, so we've got that. So I would be saying 3 big ones. You could go 2 smaller ones and maybe 3 2 full-size poinsettias and 3 of your smaller ones. Have a little play, make your first flower, and then you can adapt some of those row counts as you see fit. I have just done the hydrangea. Oh, lovely. That was a really cute one, and I actually think we're going to be bringing that one back to you as well. Question from Kieran. With these seed beads, can anyone recommend a beginner's pattern? With these seed beads, so because these are our craft beads, so they're not like a Miyuki or a Toho, they're quite irregular. I wouldn't recommend weaving with them because you get that irregularity. They're great for doing things like coraling. That's a nice one to start with. Great for adding fringing onto things. Or of course you can use them for your flowers. A nice flower to begin with, or a nice wire work flower to do, would be the holly and the mistletoe, because they're really nice quick makes. You only need a couple of petals, so you can join me on the 29th for that one. I have just mixed up all my spare green seed beads to make a Christmas tree. Maureen, that sounds like a great idea. Are you going to do a tutorial for a period stitch poppy? I'm not sure if Kitti has one. I have done the French beaded poppy, which is now a kit. Shall I grab it for you so you can see? I've got it just here. This is actually one that we did in Bead Club. So we made a single stem poppy, and we also made a poppy brooch as well. So you could use it in lots of different ways. Again, like with the poinsettia, you can make it into a potted plant, or of course a little wearable thing. I'm pretty sure we will probably still have those kits available on the website. So have a little look. If you type in poppy, you'll get everything there. A beaded spider plant, says Ruth. There you go, Camille. That's to do all of your leftovers. Or what about making like a succulent? Because they're all greens, aren't they? That would be really nice. I'm loving the idea. Hydrangeas, lots of you saying. Mistletoe, yeah. Holly and mistletoe for those green beads are going to be perfect. And because you're only making 2 leaves per sprig, they're going to be ideal to use. Any other questions that I've missed? Oh, Kieran's never used a bead spinner before. Kieran, you don't know what you're missing. It's so much fun. For me, it makes the prep fun, even more so than actually making them. I made a tiny brooch with these ones, says Lorna. That sounds lovely. Amazing. Lots of you now talking about the dogs as well. I don't think I've missed any other questions, but do let me know if there is anything else that you would like to know about the poinsettias. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Lovely. I can see lots of you going to be adding these onto the wreaths. So remember, we've got full kits. You'll get all of your wire, as well as your instructions. You've also got your 2 sizes of miracle beads in there as well. Look, you can't see a single gap in those ones, can you? That looks not too bad at all. I hope you've enjoyed it, and of course you can now make your own little beaded decorations. I hope to see your Christmas trees adorned with them this year. And thank you so much for having me again. I've missed you all. Like I said, I'll be here on the 29th, and then I believe I'm also doing some Christmas videos as well, which will be lovely. Better get those Christmas jumpers out. I hope you all have a great week. Happy Monday, another week. It looks like it's a nice day here, so I'm going to go and take those naughty dogs out for a walk. Love to you all. Thank you for having me again, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye.